Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Feast of Weeks, also known as Shavuot, also known as Pentecost, also known as the Feast of the Harvest. And here you have this video playing. It has the KOHANIM, which are the priests, and they're doing another reenactment of something that would be taking place in the temple, the third temple, if it was built right now. And this is what it looked like back in Old Testament times. So I really wanted to do this before Shavuot, or at least on one of the days of Shavuot, but it didn't work out. I've been a little bit sick lately, just wasn't feeling too good, and so wasn't able to do it. So if we go over here to the Hebrew calendar, overlaid on the Gregorian calendar, you can see that the last 2 days were Shavuot. Now, if you look at the Israeli count, like what I'm looking at right now is the diaspora calendar. That's like the scattered Jews all across the world. But on the Israeli calendar, which is, very, very similar, it just has a few adjustments. It only has 1 day for Shavuot, and I haven't looked into why. But anyway, the fact of the matter is that on Sunday, we had Pentecost. Okay, it was on Sunday. And then the second day, I guess, in the diaspora was yesterday on the 6th. This came after counting 50 days from the second day of Passover, which is also known as First Fruits, which was also on a Sunday this year. It was on the 17th of April. And from that day, you count all the way up to 50. It's called the Omer count. So First Fruits and the Feast of Weeks are connected. First Fruits starts the count. Shavuot ends the count. It's the 50th day. That's why it's called Pentecost. So, and First Fruits is actually part of the Passover week. It's part of this. You have the Seder, which is the Passover meal. And then the whole week is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where you don't eat anything that has leaven in it. And then the second day of the Passover week is First Fruits, and that starts the Omer count of 50 days, culminating with Pentecost or Shavuot. Okay, so unless something happened and I wasn't aware of it, I don't think anything happened yesterday of significance, but maybe there was. Maybe I missed Adam on Yaman, I don't know. But anyway, I was looking at this date just in case like something did happen, something that's Second Coming related. Maybe something did happen and we may just not know it yet. We may not know till after the fact. But anyway, that's not really the point of this video. I just kind of want to look at Shavuot. I want to look at the BYU virtual New Testament because we're going to be looking at the temple again and these gates and how they fit in with Pentecost. So yeah. Okay, so first, this article. This is from Israel365news.com. KOHANIM, again, that's the priests, recreate Shavuot service as the first step to reestablishing temple operations. And they did something new this year that they haven't done before. Though carried out every year, this year took the ritual reenactment one step further, adding another practical element intended to pave the way for the third temple. Now, I've brought up the stories of previous years. Here's 2018, First Fruits ceremony reenacted. This was May 22nd. I don't know if that's when Shavuot was last year. This wouldn't have been on the day of First Fruits because I don't think that First Fruits is ever as late as May. But anyway, 2018, and then here we have it on 2017. So these are all, if you haven't caught it, I did a video. Let me pull it up right now. I did a video where I pulled up all these different articles from Israel 365 showing how they're currently training the priests, like getting them actually trained. They're starting to do the actual training in anticipation of the third temple. Let's see. I'll do a search for third. Okay, this video right here, I go over all of it. They've been really busy. They've done actual sacrifices. They've done a bunch of these reenactments. There's a KOHANIM registry. They're starting to get like organized with, okay, are you actually a KOHANIM? Are you a Levite? So on and so forth. So I would recommend to check out this video. It was highly popular. Right now it's at 137,000 views, which is kind of unheard of for my channel. It really made the rounds. A lot of people from other churches were interested in it. So I'll put that link in the description below if you missed it. Okay, so this time, all right, the reenactments are held before every holiday as a practical move toward preparing the Kohanim for performing the actual temple service. The Shavuot service includes 2 specially prepared loaves, a wine libation, the Bikkurim, first fruits, and a wave offering of 2 lambs. These are recreated by Kohanim in the biblically mandated clothes as usual. Yes, and see, they're wearing the temple clothes, the priest clothes that they wear in the temple. But in addition, and for the first time, there was a recreation of the gifting of the first shearings to the Kohanim, which is the shearing of sheep, right? Wool. This commandment is described in Deuteronomy as accompanying the Bikkurim. You shall also give him the first fruits of your new grain and wine and oil and the first shearing of your sheep. That's in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 4. Okay. So this is what it looks like. He's offering it a little bit later on. Let me go back to this. There's like some kind of these like movements that they go through where they kind of like move it all the different directions. It's interesting. Okay. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, I don't know, explained the significance of shearing in the reenactment. Shepherds, quote, shepherds sheared their sheep every year as a matter of course. Since the priests who are constantly serving Hashem, which is the Lord, have no portion in the land or in the shearing, the Lord supplied them with all of their needs through their brothers. These gifts are not considered sanctified and can be used for any purpose, even sold to other non-Cohen or non-priestly people for the priest to earn a living. So remember, the tribe of Levi, they were not given land. They were given the priesthood. And so they had, if I remember right, they had cities, and then they also had the temple and the temple work to do. And so the idea is that they're so busy with the temple, they can't really properly make a living. And so it's the rest of Israel's obligation to give them offerings to help support them. People read the Bible and think the temple was so holy because it was disconnected from the operations of the world. The opposite is true. The temple connected the world to the Creator, allowing the world to operate properly. The world needs Kohanim to operate the temple, connect us with God, and teach Torah. Built into the Torah laws pertaining to the temple were mechanisms that allowed the temple to operate properly. This included raising money for the sacrifices and the priests. So many of the problems in the world today are because God has been taken out of the institutions that are in most need of divine influence. If you have a government disconnected from the Torah, a president that is not limited or guided by the Torah, of course, society will become evil. The United Nations usurped the function of the Sanhedrin and is guided by anti-biblical principles. Since they are unrepentant and see themselves as above man and God, the world's governments are on a path to destruction. That's interesting. Now, we know, as Christians, as Latter-day Saints, this was already foretold by King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. The dream is about the worldly kingdoms, especially the superpowers, and then in the end, it coming to an end, and the kingdom of Christ is going to take over. We're going to have Christ as the king. Okay. We are trying to help the world by reinstating these gifts to the KOHANIM so they can take their rightful place, and so that the temple as an institution will return to function as a light unto the nations. End quote. Shavuot is an annual Jewish holiday, one of the 3 biblically mandated pilgrimage festivals, when in temple times, Jews ascended to Jerusalem. So we have Passover, because you would, okay, I might be wrong, but I think I'm right. Passover, because you would offer the paschal lamb as a sacrifice. You have Shavuot, and then you have the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay. So, after the Jews completed the mitzvah, which is a commandment, it is observed to counting seven complete weeks. This is from Leviticus 23, verse 16. You must count 50 days until the day after the 7th week. Then you shall bring an offering of new grain to the Lord. When the temple stood in Jerusalem, a barley harvest took place on the night after the first day of Passover ended. Okay, so now we're talking about the day of, let's go up here to this year's Passover. So the first day of Passover was on Saturday, the 16th. So the next day, first fruits. This year was on the 17th on a Sunday. Okay, so when the temple stood in Jerusalem, a barley harvest took place on the night after the first day of Passover ended, marking the first night of counting the 7-week Omer period. Okay, so that makes sense. You have the first day of Passover, you have the Seder, which is the Passover meal, and then the next day you start the count, the 50-day Omer count. As Passover ended, a barley harvest took place on the night after the first day of Passover. So the next day, the barley harvest took place. Okay. As Passover ended, Jews began counting 50 days until the holiday of Shavuot. In our agricultural festival, Shavuot comes at the end of winter during the grain harvest, and is observed in the holy temple by an offering of 2 loaves of bread, made from the choicest barley, ground and sifted 12 times before being baked. The leftovers of the sacrifice are kept by the priest, who are listed as one of the 24 priestly gifts. The barley was allowed to become a sourdough used to bake 2 loaves for the holiday of Shavuot. Okay, so on first fruits, that's when you do the harvest, and it looks like the offering comes on Shavuot. That's what I'm getting from this. I'm trying to understand this. Okay, all of the other grain offerings brought in the temple were flat pan bread, usually fried in oil. Even the showbread that was always present in the temple, despite being quite large, was essentially a matzah, unleavened bread. Now, if you don't know, let's go over here to the temple. So, if you were entering in, based on what we've read from various sources, you have the entrance right here, which is a pretty steep slope. There's steps, but you come up here. Okay, so you enter in on the south side. So facing that way, you can see the sun. That's the east. The Mount of Olives is over there. There's the temple. You come over. You start out here in the court of the Gentiles. Okay, and then you reach this point. And then if you're a Gentile, you read this sign in Greek and Latin that says if you're a Gentile, you can't pass through here. Otherwise, you're taking your life into your own hands. Okay, this is called the soreg, this partition. So now you come in here. Okay, and then we're going to be talking about these gates in just a little bit. But just so we can kind of quickly... And I am assuming most of you already know where the bread would be, but let's just go in here anyway. Okay. It won't let me go up the steps. Okay, please, can I? Okay, there we go. I got up that step. It's not the easiest to navigate. Now, you can get this. This program is by BYU. They have an app for it if you want to get it for your phone or tablet. I'm using the desktop version. I'll leave the link for this below. Okay, now we're going into the sanctuary. No, stop. And this, no, not right there. Doesn't look like they have, well, here they have it like this. And I'm not saying that BYU is wrong, but the Temple Institute, I don't know if it's like different nowadays, but the Temple Institute. Let's go there. You go to study tools, go down to vessels, go down to gallery. So this right here is what they have to hold the bread. You can kind of see it in this picture. This is like a side view, but each one of these things here are a holder for the showbread. So you have 6 on each side, right? So I don't know if like during the second temple they just didn't have a holder like that. But anyway, that's where the bread was. Okay. Let's go back here. The 2 unleavened loaves were brought as a Thanksgiving wave offering, along with 2 lambs as a central aspect of the national holiday. Before baking the loaves, the KOHANIM priest would pinch off a handful of flour and throw it into the fire on the altar that stood at the center of the great temple. And the altar is out here once you leave the holy place. There's the altar, right? There's the altar. Okay. These 2 loaves were usually in what were prepared with natural leavening, whereas nearly all other grain offerings at the temple were made without leavening. The 2 loaves baked from a sourdough were shaped in a special manner with square horns in the corners resembling the altar. So see, resembling these horns right here, these pointy corners of the altar. These special loaves were recreated for the reenactment. The organizers of the reenactment brought 2 especially small lambs, since they were waved at the same time as the loaves, a difficult task made even more difficult if the lambs are larger. The lambs were not sacrificed and were only for demonstration. But they have in the past, this group that's preparing for the third temple, they have actually done actual sacrifices of lambs. The reenactment also included the ceremony of the Bikkurim, or first fruits. The ceremony was performed by KOHANIM, dressed in authentic garb, as described in the Bible, led by Rabbi Baruch Kahin. who has played a prominent role in many of the temple reenactments. In the days of the first temple, the first fruits of the annual harvest were brought to Jerusalem as an offering between the holidays of Shavuot, the Festival of Weeks, and Sukkot, the Festival of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles. So if we look at our calendar right here, okay, so first fruits was on April the 17th, and then just yesterday and the day before was Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, okay? And then between Shavuot and all the way back here, where is it? October is that time frame. So between now and October, in the days of the first temple, the first fruits of the annual harvest were brought to Jerusalem as an offering between, if it was today, it would be between Shavuot, just yesterday and the day before, and then all the way till October, I guess, when it starts on the 10th of October. It actually starts on the 9th at sundown. The fruits were brought in baskets, beautifully displayed, and given to the priests. And I actually have kind of a picture of it here, because we're going to look at these gates. Here's the women's gate, and you can see the baskets that are being given to the priests. Neatly arranged, nice baskets. Okay, Deuteronomy 26:2. Thou shalt take of the first of all the fruit of the ground, which thou shalt bring in from thy land, that Hashem thy God giveth thee, and thou shalt put it in a basket, and shalt go unto the place where Hashem thy God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Bikkurim, again, that's first fruits. First fruits were brought from the 7 species, which have a special significance to Israel. Okay, 7 species: wheat, barley, grapes, figs. I have a fig tree. Pomegranates, olive oil, and dates, honey. Deuteronomy 8, verse 8. A land of wheat and barley, and vines, and fig trees, and pomegranates, a land of olive trees, and honey. The fruits were given to the priest after the donor recited a confession, detailed in Deuteronomy 26, verses 1 through 11, acknowledging God as the one who redeemed the Israelites from the Egyptian bondage, and expressing gratitude to God for bringing them to the promised land. This aspect of the holiday is highly exclusive, focusing only on Jews living in Israel. Only the first fruits grown entirely in the land of Israel are included in this mitzvah. Even first fruits grown by non-Jews inside the land of Israel are not considered Bikkurim. Okay. So now I want to look a little bit closer using a Jewish virtual library. Using the Jewish virtual library, first fruits, and then we'll look at Shavuot. And then I want to look at the different gates. Okay, so in the Bible, the Hebrew term Bikkurim. Okay, so first we're talking about first fruits. The Hebrew term Bikkurim and related terms for the first fruits derive from the same root as Bekor, firstborn. So already that's really interesting, because we know that when Christ was resurrected, he was the first fruits. He was resurrected on first fruits. I guess the day when they did the barley harvest. So very appropriate that Bikkurim has the same root as firstborn, because we know that Christ is the firstborn. Okay. On the same general principle that the firstborn of man and beast belonged to the God of Israel and were to be devoted to him, the first fruits, including the first grains the first grains to ripen each season, were brought as an offering to God. Every Israelite who possessed the means of agricultural productivity was under this obligation. The frequent synonym of Bikkurim is Reshit, the first fruits. Deuteronomy chapter 26, 1 through 11 contains detailed procedures for the offering of the first fruits, including the text of a liturgical recitation incumbent upon any who offered their first fruits in the sanctuary. The manner of oblation prescribed in that passage represents a distinctive mode whereby the substances involved were not burnt on the altar, but merely displayed, and later assigned to the priest as part of their cultic income. On the other hand, Leviticus chapter 2, verse 14 speaks of the minhat bikurim, quote, a grain offering of first fruits, end quote, prescribing that part of it be burnt on the altar. It would seem, therefore, that at least some of the grain brought at first fruits was disposed of in that manner, although the prescription of Leviticus may reflect the tendency to accommodate older forms of sacrifice to the particularly Israelite practice of the burnt offering. It is difficult to identify this minha within the text of first fruit offerings. It has been identified. Okay, we're going to skip this. A new sheaf of the new barley harvest, Omer. Okay. Oh, and it has a little pop-up. Hebrew sheaf. In Judaism, the sheaf of grain offering brought to the temple during Passover on Nisan 16, thus also the name of the 7-week period between Passover, Pesach, and Shavuot, also known as the Sephirah. Okay. So, a sheaf of the new barley harvest, Omer, was offered on the second day of the Passover festival. Okay, a sheaf of new barley harvest offered on the second day of the Passover on first fruits. According to the Mishnah, in Second Temple times, the pilgrimage to the temple for the purpose of offering the first fruits could be undertaken anytime between Shavuot in the late spring and Sukkot in the fall. But see below. But the festival of Shavuot was the first date for this offering. So the thing I don't quite get is it says that, okay, so I don't know if it's just like one sheaf per family that grows barley, or one sheaf for the whole nation is offered on first fruits. And then after that, you're supposed to wait between Shavuot and the Feast of Tabernacles. That's the part I don't really understand. See, like say that what I'm trying to say that I'm a farmer in Israel and I have barley. Am I supposed to, on first fruits during Passover, like so if it was this year, April 17th, would I take a sheaf and then bring that to the temple, and then on the second day of Passover, and then wait 50 days and then bring a larger offering, right? Anytime between Shavuot and the Feast of Tabernacles. That I'm not really too clear from this, but whatever. A sheaf of the new barley harvest was offered on the second day of the Passover festival. Okay, whatever. So I don't know. Okay, let's just continue. Okay. A rite notionally related to the offering of first fruits was the bringing of the fruit of trees during the 4th year of fruit bearing. In both cases, an offering was required to release the fruit, as it were, for consumption by its owners. Okay, I think that's kind of all I want to read from first fruits. Let's move on to Shavuot from the same source, the Jewish Virtual Library. Here you have women. It says Bikkurim ceremony at Kibbutz Givat Haim, 1951. It's lovely. Okay. Shavuot. Okay, so now we're talking about Shavuot, the one that we're on right now, just the last couple days. Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, is the second of three major festivals with both historical and agricultural significance. The other two are Passover and Sukkot. Okay, so I got that right. So Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Agriculturally, it commemorates the time when the first fruits were harvested and brought to the temple, and is known as Hag ha-Bikurim, the festival of the first fruits. Historically, it celebrates the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Now, see, I think that that's significant. I've expressed that several times on the channel, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So they see it as a commemoration of Mount Sinai and receiving the Torah. Okay, the period from Passover to Shavuot is a time of great anticipation. We count each of the days from the second day of Passover to the day before Shavuot, 49 days, or 7 full weeks. Hence the name of the festival. See the counting of the Omer. Okay. Shavuot is also sometimes known as Pentecost because it falls on the 50th day. The counting reminds us of the important connection between Passover and Shavuot. Passover freed us physically from bondage, but the giving of the Torah on Shavuot redeemed us spiritually from our bondage of idolatry and immorality. That's interesting. That is interesting. So Passover is the temporal freedom from bondage, and then Shavuot, the spiritual. And it's appropriate because that's the day that the Holy Ghost came in New Testament times. It was after Christ was crucified. They were celebrating Shavuot, Pentecost, and that's when the Holy Ghost came. And we've read about that. We've read in the Bible dictionary where it basically says that it's clear that there were people before that time, before New Testament times, that had the Holy Ghost, prophets and so forth, but it didn't seem to have been received by the people until Pentecost. Okay. So, and that's what it says in the Bible dictionary. We've already looked at that. Okay, so it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay. It's noteworthy that the holiday is called the time of giving of the Torah rather than the time of receiving of the Torah. The sages point out that we are constantly in the process of receiving the Torah, that way that we receive it every day, but it was first given at this time. Thus, it is the giving, not the receiving, that makes the holiday significant. Shavuot is not tied to a particular calendar date, but to a counting from Passover. So, if we were to look at the Hebrew calendar right now, Shavuot fell on the 6th and on the 7th of Sivan. The 6th and the 7th of Sivan. But that's not always the case because it's simply 50 days from the second day of Passover. That's what determines the day. You start on the 16th of Nisan, count 50 days. Which I don't know if that changes. Whatever. That it's based on first fruits. Starting the count on first fruits. Because the length of the months used to be variable, determined by observation, and there are now 2 new moons between Passover and Shavuot. Shavuot could occur on the 5th or 6th of Sivan. However, now that we have a mathematically determined calendar and the months between Passover and Shavuot do not change length on the mathematical calendar, Shavuot is always on the 6th of Sivan, the 6th and 7th outside of Israel. I'm going to move on to the next one. This is now on kabod.org. What is Shavuot? We've actually gone over this before. Let me just read a few of the highlights. Our sages have compared it to a wedding between God and the Jewish people. Shavuot also means oaths. For on this day, God swore eternal devotion to us, and we in turn pledged everlasting loyalty to him. This is why I feel like this plays into the second coming in some way, why something may happen on this day, like Adam on Diamond. And I'm just going to repeat what I've said before. Sorry for the repetition, but we read it, I think it was an Ensign article pointing out the fact that when Israel came to Mount Sinai and basically Moses introduced the Lord to the nation of Israel, or well, vice versa, that Moses introduced Israel to the Lord, that they were brought together. That was like the betrothal, which in Hebrew or in Jewish custom, that's as good as being married. So it's as though this entire time, even till right now, we've been in the betrothal period from Mount Sinai until when Christ comes again. And he uses the imagery of marriage for the second coming. We have, notably, with the parable of the 10 virgins, it's about a marriage. It's about waiting for the bridegroom to come and then having the marriage feast. And you want to make sure that you make it into the marriage feast, okay? That you're not one of the 5 foolish virgins. You want to be ready. So I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know if anything significant will happen on Shavuot, like Adam on Diamond, because I'm assuming that when Christ comes, from what we've read about Adam on Diamond, that's where he essentially assumes the kingdom. He takes over the kingdom and he becomes the king, right? So I would think that that's kind of like, that's the marriage feast. I could be wrong about that, but it would make sense to me that it would happen on Shavuot. But I guess only time will tell. We'll see what happens. Okay. How is Shavuot celebrated? Now, this is nowadays. Women and girls light holiday candles to usher in the holiday on both the first and second evenings of the holidays. It is customary to stay up all night learning Torah on the first night of Shavuot. All men, women, and children should go to the synagogue to hear the reading of the 10 Commandments on the first day of Shavuot, right? Because it was received on Mount Sinai. As on other holidays, special meals are eaten and no work may be performed. It's customary to eat dairy foods on Shavuot. Menus range from traditional cheese blintzes to quiches, casseroles, and more. On the second day of Shavuot, the Yizkor memorial service is recited. Some communities read the Book of Ruth during morning services, as King David, who passing occurred on this day, was a descendant of Ruth the Moabite. Some have the custom to decorate their homes and synagogues with flowers and sweet-smelling plants in advance of Shavuot, right? Because it's a spring, it's like a late spring, early summer festival, right? And I pointed out, you can see it here. If you do a search for Shavuot and you look at the images, like an image search, it'll always have wheat. Wheat is like is one of the primary symbols of Shavuot, which also makes me think of the second coming, because a lot of times the second coming is referred to as like a wheat harvest. So anyway, okay, so now I just want to finish this off by looking at like where would you go? Like if you're bringing your first fruits, your for Shavuot, where do you do that at? So let's take a look at the gates of the temple at the time of Christ. This is done by the Temple Institute, and if they're successful at building a third temple, then it would follow this same pattern. So you have the gates on the north side of the temple and gates on the south side of the temple. So let me show you what I mean. So let's go out here. This is the court of the women. I've done like a kind of an extended tour of the temple once I found out about this program. Let's just stop right here. So we've come through so you might want to go check that out. I will actually, let me pull it up so I don't forget about it. I'll put the description for that, or I'll put the link for that in the description. Let's go to my channel. Okay, temple tour. Okay, tour the second temple. So we looked at a lot of things in this video. It is on the longer side. It's almost 2 hours long. There was just so much. There's so much to look at. Excuse if you hear me snoring in the background. My wife is taking a nap. She had kind of a rough night, and I'm just sorry. Okay, so there's the Soreg. So we've come through. We're not in the court of the Gentiles anymore. And you can see over here on the south side, you have these gates, right? You have these gates right here. And then on the north side, there are also gates. So let's just take a shortcut. Stuck on this part again. There we go. Let's go through here. And we're just going to take it one gate at a time. Go through here. Okay, so now we're on the north side. Okay. So let's go to the Temple Institute. So we have the Yaconia gate, which, let me step back just a little bit further. There's the Roman fortress Antonia right there. Okay, so this one right here, this is the Yaconia gate. And there's not a lot of information that I was able to learn from this, but it's also called the Gate of the Spark. Okay, and it says the Yaconia gate was the most western gate of the 4 northern gates. It was called thusly because King Yaconia, or Yeconiah, maybe it's Yeconiah, exited through this gate en route to the Babylon exile at the end of the First Temple period. This gate was also called the Gate of the Spark. Some say that the origin of this name is because above this gate there is a loft where a small fire was kept burning, from which the wood pile could be lit in case its fire had been extinguished. This loft was one of the 3 places guarded by the priests. So I guess if the altar fire went out, there was a continuously burning fire here. Now it says that there's like a loft, so I don't know if inside this big room, if there was like a kind of like a second floor, but a loft, but whatever. So the Yaconia gate. Okay, what about these other ones? So the next one is the Gate of the Offering. Okay, the gate of the offering, through which the offerings of the highest level of sanctity were brought. So that is this next gate right here. So it seems that if you were bringing a sacrifice, you would walk all the way around. You would come in through the south, walk all the way around to this north side, and then give the offering right here. Okay. Just based on what we're reading. Okay. And then the next gate is the women's gate. And it says, through which women entered to offer their sacrifices. Sorry, let me read this first. So let's go back to the gate of the offering. The gate of the offering was the second gate from the west of the four northern gates. Through this gate, offerings of the highest level of sanctity were brought to the slaughtering area, since the slaughter and the retrieval of their blood was performed in the northern section of the court. So, and here's some pictures here. Here's a little boy with a goat. So I guess you would bring it through here. And what it was just talking about is if we actually come inside here, the slaughtering area of the temple is here on the north side. So the altar is on the south side. The slaughtering area is on the north side. So it's just a little bit closer, I guess. I mean, it's a longer walk for you, but that gate is closer to the slaughtering area. Maybe that's because maybe there's just like less chance of like, because obviously the animals are going to leave a mess, you know, wherever they go. So maybe it just makes it so that there's less mess or something like that. Maybe that's the rationale. But anyway, let's go back out. Okay. Let's turn around. Stop. Okay. So that's the gate of the offering. And then the gate. Wait, is that how it was up here? It's saying that the next gate, next to the gate of offering, is the women's gate. So this one is the gate of offering. That one is the women's gate. And there are pictures here. This is what we were looking at before, where they're bringing the priests the first fruits, the first fruit offerings, the Bikkurim. It says bottom right and bottom middle pictures show a woman bringing her Bikkurim, the first fruits offering, on the holy day of Shavuot. The gate of the women, the easternmost gate of the four north gates. Okay, so I just found a discrepancy. This graphic right here is not correct, I don't think. Because it looks like they're saying that what it says right here is gate of the song. It's like what we're reading is that this is actually the women's gate based on what we're reading. See, and on this graphic, it shows this as the gate of the song. So they messed up on this first graphic. Maybe I should email them. Okay, so scratch that. So this one over here, this is the women's gate. Okay, so the forgetting the names. The gate of the offering is right here. The gate of the women is right here. And then the middle gate is the gate of the song. And it says the gate of the song was one of the four northern gates of the court. The Levites would enter the Azara inner courtyard through the gate of the song, pick up their instruments at the chamber of musical instruments located in the women's court, and then take their positions on the dukan, the raised platform in the Azara, where they would perform the daily song during the bringing of offerings. So, okay, so here's a picture of it here. So let's pretend that we're a Levite. Okay, we're coming in because we're supposed to do the daily song. We go through here. This is how we enter in. And then we go into the court of the women, which is out here. And then somewhere over here, we pick up our instruments, and then we come back inside. And then it looked like they were singing on this south side. It looked like they were singing from like over here. That's what it looks like. Because you can see the ramp right there. So, yeah, okay. So that's that. And then here is the women's gate right there. Okay, now let's look at the other gates. So we have the gate of the kindling, the gate of the firstborn, and the gate of water. But there's 4 though, isn't there? Okay. The gate of water. Now this is interesting. This is interesting. Let's go out. Let's go down to the south side of the temple. Okay. This is good. Right here. Stop. Okay, here we have 3 main gates. And it looks like maybe that's the case here. Okay. Hold on. Okay, the gate of the southern court. Okay, that is going to be... Gosh, this is kind of confusing. Because it doesn't seem to match up with this model here by BYU. I'm not saying that either one is wrong. Here, let's walk this way. Is there another gate back here somewhere? No. No, there's just these 3. Unless like it's counting these smaller ones right here, I guess that would make sense. Because on this graphic, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here there's 5. So I guess these smaller ones are gates. Okay, so... Okay, the gate of the southern court. In the southern section of the court, there were 4 gates. The gate of kindling, through which wood for the wood pile was brought in. The gate of the firstborn, through which the firstborn offerings were brought in. The gate of water, through which a flask of water for the libation performed during the Sukkot, which is the Feast of Tabernacles holiday, was brought. So the gate of water is the furthest one this way. Okay, so here's the temple. So we're going to this furthest one over here. Okay, this is the gate of water. Now, an interesting thing that I saw about this. Okay, so this is used, I guess, just for the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay. And it says, a different opinion claims that the name Watergate is derived from the prophecy which states that in the future, a river will flow from under the Holy of Holies, and the water will flow through this gate and out of the temple. So that's kind of interesting. Is that true necessarily? I mean, I don't know, probably not, but it could be. but there's a tradition that says that, because the prophecy, it was a vision by Ezekiel. He saw water coming out from under the temple, and then it went out to the Dead Sea, and it healed the Dead Sea. And it seems that that prophecy is both spiritual and literal. According to a quote that I saw from Joseph Smith, it seems that it is actually literal as well. So when we face this way, the Dead Sea is kind of like in this direction, right? And then if we're looking this way, this is south. So if this was to play out, I guess water, if this like opinion was true, I guess water would come through here, and then maybe it would go down one of the ramps. I don't know. It seems like that would be kind of chaotic, but anyway, there's that tradition. Okay, so let's move on to the gate of the firstborn. You see right here. It says it is possible that through this gate, the other offerings of a lower level of sanctity were also brought, such as peace offerings, tithes, and the Passover offering. But through this gate, the firstborn offerings were brought into the court. It should be noted that the firstborn offerings were attributed a lower level of sanctity, and therefore were slaughtered. Therefore, their slaughter is permitted anywhere in the court. Therefore, they were brought in on the south side. All right, the gate of kindling. That is going to be... It looks like... Okay, so this one would be... I don't know. I guess... Let's look back up here. So it looks like this small room would be this small gate would be the firstborn. And then this one right here would be the gate of kindling. Okay. Through this gate, wood was brought in for the Mitz Beach wood piles. The gates of the southern court. Oh, and then that's it. It says upper gate. The upper gate was the most western of the four southern gates of the court. Some say it was called this because it was situated on the ascent of the mountain. Okay. So I guess... I don't know. I guess this one. Who knows? It's not a perfect matchup, or I'm just not a perfect person. We know that for sure. But anyway, okay, so it would seem to me that the Bikkurim, the first fruits, would probably be brought in on that north side of the temple. So just based on what we saw from the Temple Institute. But there you have it. That's our look today into first fruits and Pentecost or Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, which just concluded yesterday. It was the day before yesterday and yesterday. So now the one that we're looking forward to next is going to be Rosh Hashanah. That's going to be in this year. It's in September. It's on the 26th. And that's the Jewish New Year. It's when the date changes. Okay. So, and it's part of the high holy days, which is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day. It's the Day of Atonement. And the days in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are known as the days of awe. And we'll talk more about that as that time approaches. But for right now, hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.